Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from Pennsylvania in the US is Drew Craig. Hey, Drew. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco. Thank you so much. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good, and I hear you're good. And you had your morning walk outside, enjoying nature.
Absolutely. Yeah, the benefit of getting up early in the day is it gives you time to do your own thing, whether it's getting outside, having your coffee, exercising, or reading. I find that is the valuable quiet time of the day where you really do have the options on
before
doing
the
things that
hamster
matter to
wheel
you.
sets in, right?
Yes. Yep. Before the kids are up getting on the bus or going into work or picking kids up from activity, all the stuff. Exactly.
All the live stuff. So Drew calls himself an Agile Coach for humans, inspiring growth for individuals, teams, and systems to be better together. In all of his roles, the connection has been the people. He's passionate about establishing sustainable and simple processes, techniques, or insights as mechanisms towards self-sufficient and empowered systems. Drew, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Well, I think I took a path similar to most in our audience. I started out a little bit more on the technical side. I did enjoy doing some programming. I had aspirations to be a programmer or a developer. It was all very exciting. I took classes. I did all the stuff. And once I got into the profession, I just felt like it was missing something. And just a little bit of a backstory is prior to my professional career, I was a people manager for retail stores, for coffee shops. So I had that experience. And what I felt was missing was that people connection, maybe that leadership opportunity or mentorship opportunity, maybe like a more opportunity to influence. So I just didn't feel that I was in the right role. So I pursued an opportunity at a large healthcare system where I entered into a product analyst role. And this organization actually turned out to be the organization that actually inspired a lot of my future decisions, but I didn't know this yet at the time. And so this organization had recently begun their Agile effort, and they seem quite mature as I reflect back. I don't know how long they've been going. But that was when I was introduced to just even the roles. I mean, I'd never been introduced to it before, ever. And so I was learning about the roles and just the setup, right? They had these team rooms where they just basically there was only desks on the outer edge. It was still a cubicle, but it was just a really big cubicle. And they had desks on the outer edge and a big table in the middle. And everybody sat at the table in the middle. And they did all their planning and refinement, everything. They actually used index cards. And these meetings were pretty pure if we think about what the expectation is. And it was just such a learning environment. Now, again, I didn't really realize what I was learning or absorbing at the time. And I can't lie and say that there weren't times that I was a little bit annoyed because I just didn't understand. It wasn't until I moved on to the next organization, this was sort of like a boutique consulting firm, that I started to really embrace some of the things that I'd learned. And now I was starting to use my increasing sphere of influence to start to challenge folks to think about their work a little bit differently and how they can interact with it, whether that's bring in stakeholders or product into the development group to provide quicker feedback loops, to kind of establish what a feedback loop is, to just get folks to just think about changing the way they interact with each other and their work. And it kind of just all spiraled from there. Um, did some Scrum Master roles as part of my consulting career, um, and then was asked to be an Agile coach at a different consulting firm. And that was my jump from being a Scrum Master to an Agile coach, which I was quite nervous about. And we never think that we're ready for that next pursuit of our profession.
Yeah, of
And it was
course.
just quite a learning opportunity to just jump in. And I can share some stories later on that I think it was just a great learning experience to kind of take that next step.
Absolutely. And I can imagine you experiencing that first company where you worked at and seeing people interacting with very high bandwidth, right? Like sitting at the table in the middle and having those conversation reminders, like index cards with the stories.
Yep.
And I can imagine you also thinking about what you learned there and then applying it later. And as you said, we're never really ready. Like we know a
Yeah.
lot after a few years of experience. We know a lot. We have a lot of experience, but somehow this world has the gift to give us some curveballs every now and then, and that's what we're going to talk about next, Drew. So tell us a story of a moment where you, as a Scrum Master or Agile coach, your turn to decide. You had a difficult moment. We'll dive into the takeaways and the insights later, but walk us through that story and how it felt to be there at the time.
Yeah. And that's almost a hard question because it's simple, and simple is hard because we live these things every day. I am a perpetual reflector. And so I tend to maybe look a little smaller in the things that I view as these reflection points. There's certainly big bang um, learning opportunities. I don't use the word failure too much, but just these learning opportunities where we think that we make a decision around, let's say, a process, and maybe the guide rails that we're providing are just a little too tight or constraining, and we think that we're solving a problem, but we're not allowing enough flexibility in the process for the teams to feel empowered or to
How
be
does that look like in
autonomous.
practice? Explain that to us.
Well, often, and this can be both roles, as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach, we we tend to notice things that the teams may not notice. Maybe we're looking at a different altitude, and we think that implementing a process is going to solve the problem. So maybe in a way, we are kind of going against some of these fundamentals that we hold ourselves true. And we get a little bit too heavy handed with a process, all for the right reasons, right? Intentions are good, but we get a little heavy handed with trying to implement a process that we think is going to solve a problem, but we might not actually know what the problem is. And so we shortchange ourselves from taking away the observation opportunity or the conversation opportunity to understand what the process or what the problem is, rather. And then we can start to like find solutions from actually what the problem is, not what we think is the problem or what we think is the right solution. Because often what we think is the right thing is not always the thing that's
Can you
actually
tell us an
needed.
example, like one that you went through that you thought you knew the problem, but eventually it became clear you didn't actually. So tell us that story.
The story, well, one story would involve a team that we had spun up. This was actually at a pharmaceutical company. And this team worked in digital marketing. And that's interesting all by itself because now we're outside of the world which we typically find normal is like a development world with programmers and so on and so forth. But this team had challenges in how to kind of define and break up their work. And so this was when I came in with a little bit more process to tell them what I felt was the best way for them to break up their work, really not allowing myself to understand their roles. Again, these are new roles. There's no technical developers on this role. These are marketing folks. And so I didn't even really understand the work. And so just helping them to slice up their work, to create their stories, to help them to understand how to deliver and work together. I didn't know what I was talking about. And so that made the team struggle and just question everything that they were doing. They weren't feeling confident in the direction that the organization was going because I took away their empowerment, right? Because I didn't give them the right information, right? You can't be empowered without information. And so that obviously that didn't work, but fortunately the team felt comfortable with me enough to bring that up, right? So now we have to be humble and take the feedback ourselves. And that was a big learning, defining moment for me in my career.
So I really like this story because very often we are put in situations where no matter how much experience we have, we just don't have access to all of the information. Like in this story that you just told, it's quite obvious. If you have no experience in marketing, it is obvious that you're not going to fully understand the work that they are doing in the terms that they do, right? You understand it in your own terms, just like anyone would. But they are the ones that actually need to live with that, right? Like they are the ones that need to understand what the breakdown is and to split the work among themselves and so on. But when we bring in our thinking, which can be very helpful if it is used as a seed or a brainstorming help, but when we bring our thinking without taking into account their own perspective, kind of bringing the two together, if you will, if we don't bring the two together, we are going to impose on them frameworks that can cause something you said, which I found very interesting, can cause lack of confidence in the team, right? And this is the work that they are doing, the work that they know, but there's this new person here, the Agile Coach or Scrum Master, who's telling us to do things in a different way. And of course, we need to hear what they have to say, but then we get lost as the team and we don't know how to proceed, right?
Yeah. No, it's such a great point. And I think it's so meaningful and valuable to be able, right? I guess this is the human side where we just have the opportunity to reflect. And we build the trust to say, hey, you know what? I didn't really know what I was talking about. I thought that what we were doing was right. My intentions were good, but let's do a reset, right? And you can build a lot of confidence. You can enhance that relationship. And I think that's really meaningful because at the end of the day, it's not about how agile you can be or how well you can do Scrum. It's about helping others to achieve the things that are important to their customers and understanding what that takes, right? All these are just things to help that along. That's the mechanism part. All kinds of mechanisms that we can put in place. But at the end of the day, it's for one thing, and it's to deliver excellent solutions to our customers.
In a framework or in a way that the team is able to perform, right? And that was kind of the core aspect of that story that you shared, which was a really great story. Thank you for sharing, Drew.
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.